Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. You think you know exactly how a marriage ends. You imagine a screaming match, broken vases, maybe a tearful confession late at night, but mine ended with a soft thwack against cold marble. That was the sound of the manila envelope hitting the kitchen island. Derek did not even look at me when he slid it across the surface. He just stood there adjusting his silk tie in the reflection of the microwave, checking his teeth as if he were preparing for a board meeting, not the demolition of our 20-year life together. "Sign them, Tanisha," he said, his voice bored. "Let us make this easy. You get the car, I get the house, and I will give you a generous allowance for 6 months. After that, you are on your own." I stared at the envelope. I did not need to open it to know what it was. The word divorce hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. But it was not the papers that made my stomach turn. It was the look on his face, a small, self-satisfied smirk that told me he thought he had already won. He looked at me not as his wife, the mother of his children, or the partner who had held his hand through bankruptcy scares and panic attacks. He looked at me like I was an outdated piece of furniture he was finally sending to the junkyard. "You are leaving?" I asked, my voice steady. It surprised me how calm I sounded. Inside, my heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, but my hands resting on the counter were perfectly still. "I have found someone, Tanisha," Derek said, finally turning to face me. He leaned back against the counter, crossing his arms. "Someone who understands my vision. Someone who matches my energy. Look at you. You are just a housewife. You have been comfortable in my shadow for too long. I need a partner, not a dependent." Dependent. The word tasted like ash in my mouth. I watched him. This man I had loved for 2 decades, this man whose entire public image was built on a foundation of lies that I had carefully constructed for him. He truly believed his own press releases. He believed he was the self-made tycoon, the genius of Westchester. He had forgotten who actually laid the bricks of that empire. "Sierra," I said. It was not a question. Derek blinked, his composure slipping for a fraction of a second. "It does not matter who it is," he replied. "What matters is that I am done carrying you. You have no income, Tanisha. No career, no assets. You have nothing without me. My lawyer has drawn up the terms. They are fair. More than fair, considering you have not brought a paycheck into this house since the 90s. He checked his Rolex, dismissed me with a wave of his hand, and grabbed his briefcase. "I will be staying at the city apartment until this is finalized. Do not make this messy, Tanisha. You cannot afford a legal battle. You cannot afford anything." The front door slammed shut, echoing through the large, suddenly silent house. I stood there for a long time, the quiet ringing in my ears. The morning sun streamed through the windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. He thought I was broken. He thought I would collapse onto the floor and weep for the loss of his paycheck, his status, his protection. He had no idea. I picked up the envelope. I did not open it. Instead, I walked to the window and watched his Porsche back out of the driveway. He drove fast, aggressive, like a man rushing toward a bright new future. I felt a strange sensation rising in my chest. It was not grief. It was not fear. It was clarity, cold, sharp, absolute clarity. He thought he was discarding a liability. He did not realize he was declaring war on the bank. I turned away from the window and headed to his home office. I needed to know the extent of the damage. The desktop computer was still logged in. Arrogance made him careless. He thought I was too out of touch to understand his world, forgetting I was the one who had set up his network security back in 2004. I sat in his leather chair and went straight to the cloud server linked to our family account. In the drafts folder of his personal email, I found it, subject, exit strategy, saved at 2 a.m. last night. It was addressed to Sierra. I clicked. "Do not worry about the house, babe," he had written. "The old hag does not know the market value. I am going to pressure her to sell immediately. We will claim the market is crashing. We split the equity and I will use my half for the penthouse down payment. She will be lucky to get enough for a condo in New Jersey. As for Maya, I am pushing for full custody. Not because I want to deal with a teenager, but if she stays with me, I do not have to pay Tanisha child support. The girl is easy to manipulate. A few shopping trips and she will say whatever the judge wants to hear." I read the words until they blurred. Old hag. Easy to manipulate. Using our daughter to save a few thousand a month. He was not just leaving me. He was planning to strip mine our life, Sell the roof over my head, treat our child like a bargaining chip, and crow about it to his mistress. A cold fury settled in my chest, different from the first flare of anger. This was heavier, darker, the kind of rage that burns down forests. He wanted a war over assets. He wanted to talk about who owned what. He had forgotten who wrote the first check that kept him out of prison. To understand how deep the knife cut, you have to go back to 2003, before the Westchester mansion, before the bespoke suits, before he became the Derek Dawson. Back then, we were in a cramped one-bedroom apartment in Queens that smelled perpetually of boiled cabbage from the neighbors downstairs. Derek was not a chief executive officer then. He was a panic-stricken young man with a dream of an electronics distribution company and absolutely no idea how to manage a balance sheet. I came home from my job as a senior auditor at a mid-sized firm one Tuesday in November to find him sitting on the floor surrounded by crumpled papers, sobbing. "It is over, Tanisha," he choked. "The IRS sent a notice. I messed up the payroll taxes. They're going to freeze the business accounts. I cannot pay the suppliers. I am going to jail." He looked so small, so defeated. I sat beside him, took the papers from his hands, and started reading. It was bad, but not unfixable, just sloppy. He had mixed personal and business expenses, missed filing deadlines, miscalculated withholdings. He needed $42,000 immediately to clear the penalties and pay the supplier to release the next shipment. If he did not get it within 48 hours, he was finished. "No bank will touch me," he whispered. "My credit is shot. I am a failure." I looked at him and felt a surge of protective love. I had money he did not know about. My grandmother, Lillian, a woman of steel and New England discipline, had left me an inheritance. I had put it into a high-yield account and pretended it did not exist, saving it for a house or some distant emergency. "I can fix this," I said. I lied about the amount, told him it was exactly $42,000. In truth, it was significantly more, but my grandmother's words echoed in my head. "Never give a man everything. Keep a piece of yourself that is just yours." "I will write you a check," I said, "but you have to promise me something. You let me handle the books from now on. You sell. You charm the clients. I handle the money, the taxes, the compliance, the strategy. And no one needs to know the money came from me. Tell everyone you secured an angel investor. Your pride is important for the business image." He gripped my hands like I had thrown him a life raft. "Anything. You are saving my life, Tanisha. We are a team. You are the brains. I am the face. One day I will buy you the moon." I wrote the check the next morning and drained that account to save him. For the next 5 years, I worked 2 jobs. By day, I was an auditor. By night, from 6 in the evening to 2 in the morning, I was the unpaid chief financial officer of Dawson Electronics. I cleaned up his messes, set up inventory systems, negotiated with vendors overseas, and rebuilt his relationship with the IRS. Derek got the credit. When the company turned its first million in profit, he gave an interview to a local business journal. I stood in the background holding his coat. "I pulled myself up by my bootstraps," he told the reporter. "I stared bankruptcy in the face and bet on myself when no one else would." He did not mention the $42,000. He did not mention the wife who taught him how to read a profit and loss statement. I smiled anyway. I thought we were building our future. I believed his success was our success. I did not realize that by letting him take all the credit, I was painting myself out of the portrait of our life, brushstroke by brushstroke, until I became part of the scenery. As years blurred into decades, Dawson Electronics thrived. We moved from Queens to a starter home on Long Island, then to a sprawling estate in Westchester. The cars got faster, the suits got sharper, and Derek's ego swelled until it filled every room. Behind each milestone, there was me at the kitchen table with a laptop, usually with a baby monitor next to it. I wrote his pitch decks, built his projections, and crafted his quarterly reports. When he needed to face venture capitalists in 2010 and panicked, sweating through his shirt, I laid our toddler Jalen down for his nap and wrote the entire presentation. I coached Derek on when to pause, when to smile, when to look each investor in the eye. He came home from that meeting popping a bottle of champagne and shouting that he had them eating out of the palm of his hand. He did not pour me a glass. He bragged about improvising middle sections of the pitch. He had memorized my script word for word. The pattern hardened. I did the invisible work. He posed for the photographs. As the company grew, he began to push me out of the picture entirely. "You should not come to the office anymore," he he said one night around 2015. It looks unprofessional. We are seeking global partners. It looks mom and pop, if the chief executive officer's wife is hanging around the finance department. Besides, you are busy with the kids. Maya needs you. He began to define me as a housewife. He needed the world to see him as a lone genius. My presence reminded people he needed help. The breaking point should have been the Chamber of Commerce Gala 3 years ago. Derek was named Entrepreneur of the Year. I bought a deep blue dress and sat at the head table. When he took the stage, he held the acceptance speech I had refined for nights, including a heartfelt section of gratitude for the support system at home. He charmed the crowd, thanked his executive team and investors, then smiled and said, "And finally, I want to thank my executive assistant, Sierra, for keeping my schedule straight and my coffee black. I could not do it without you." The camera found Sierra, young, glowing, beaming at him. He did not say my name once. I sat frozen, the smile on my face like a mask. Later in the car, I asked why he had thanked his assistant, but not his wife. He laughed. "Do not be so sensitive, Tanisha. Thanking your wife sounds weak." That was the night I stopped writing his speeches and stopped fixing his spreadsheets. That night, after he fell asleep, I went down to the basement, opened the old wall safe, and looked at the documents I had ignored for years. If he wanted to play business, I would play business. Not as his secretary, but as a competitor. That decision led me to the secret he had never bothered to ask about. My grandmother Lillian had not been flashy. Her family made their money in New England textiles, then quietly moved it into land and blue-chip stocks. When she died, she bypassed my mother, who was terrible with money, and left the bulk of the estate to me in a blind trust. When I married Derek, the trust was worth about $2 million. I used a portion for his bailout and locked the rest away. But I did not let it sit. While Derek was shaking hands and buying expensive dinners to impress clients, I was managing my portfolio from the kitchen table. In 2008, when the market crashed and he was vomiting from anxiety over a frozen line of credit, I was quietly buying technology stocks at rock-bottom prices. Because the trust was inheritance, kept completely separate, never commingled with marital funds, never used to pay household bills, never touched by Derek, it remained legally ironclad, my separate property. After he left the house that morning, and after I read the exit strategy email, I went down to the basement, moved a stack of old holiday decorations, and opened the wall safe. I pulled out my personal laptop, logged into my brokerage account, and watched the screen refresh. Total portfolio value: over $14 million, not including more than $3 million in an offshore bond account. I sat on the cold concrete and stared at the number. On paper, Derek's company might have looked impressive, but it was leveraged to the hilt. If he liquidated everything, he might walk away with a couple of million. I had $17 million, liquid and free. Money was my shield. But I wanted more than survival. I wanted justice. That required exposure. I closed the laptop, returned it to the safe, and went back upstairs. Before I could reach the basement earlier, someone else had come through the front door. It was the slam of a backpack, the heavy stomping of teenage feet. "Maya," I called, smoothing my cardigan and my face at the same time. I could not let her see the wreckage. My 14-year-old daughter marched into the kitchen, mascara-streaked, eyes red. When she looked at me, I saw accusation, not need. "Dad just texted me," she said, voice cracking. "He said he is leaving because he cannot breathe here anymore. He said he is suffocating because of you." It felt like a slap. "Maya, sweetie, it is complicated. Your father and I—" "No, it is not complicated," she screamed, pacing past the envelope on the island. "It is because you are boring, Mom. You just sit here all day. You do not do anything. Dad is out there building a company, meeting people, doing important things, and you just exist. He told me he needs someone who inspires him. Why could you not try harder?" Her words were precise daggers aimed at insecurities I had buried for years. It was Derek's voice spilled into our daughter. He had been poisoning the well while I folded her laundry and drove her to soccer practice. "He is taking me with him," she added, chin trembling. "Once the court stuff is done, I can live with him and Sierra in the city. She works in fashion. She understands him." "Go to your room, Maya," I said quietly. "I hate you," she screamed, running. Upstairs. The slam of her bedroom door shook the house. Losing a husband was one thing. Having my child weaponized against me was a violation I had not prepared for. Derek was not just leaving. He was salting the earth so nothing could grow for me here. That was when I went into his office, read his exit strategy, and realized how thoroughly he intended to erase me. Fury steadied my hands. I reset his email password through the recovery number that still pointed to my phone, then logged into the corporate American Express account as the original signatory. The last 6 months of spending were obscene. A business trip to what he had labeled a supply chain conference in Miami corresponded to 5 nights at a resort in the Florida Keys. An $8,500 purchase at a luxury boutique on Madison Avenue was coded as office supplies/gifts. A Birkin-level handbag for Sierra. A $15,000 deposit to a Manhattan luxury rental was labeled relocation services. I printed everything. Then I found the consulting contract. TVH Solutions, a shell company, paid $10,000 a month for strategic brand advising. Registered address, a post office box in New Jersey. Registered agent, Sierra Vanessa Hart. Derek had been funneling $250,000 of company money straight to his mistress. This was not just adultery. This was embezzlement, and I was the best auditor in the state. Still, his entire plan hinged on one assumption, that he could force the sale of the house. So I went to the blue binder labeled Property and Deeds on the office shelf and flipped it open. We bought the Westchester place in 2005 as a foreclosure. It needed everything. Derek's credit was still poisoned from the tax mess. The bank would not put him on the mortgage. I used another portion of my trust for a 40% down payment. The lawyer had advised us to put the deed solely in my name for asset protection. Just until my score goes up, Derek had said. We never changed it. My finger traced the typed lines. Owner, Tanisha Dawson. Status, sole and separate property, purchased with inheritance funds. In New York, marital funds paying the mortgage could create an interest, but he could not force a quick sale without a long, expensive fight he could not fund. He was already spending money he did not truly control. The doorbell rang at 2 in the afternoon. I checked the peephole and felt my blood run cold. It was Derek, and right beside him stood Sierra in a white blazer, tape measure in hand. He had left me that morning and was now bringing his mistress into my home as if I were already gone. I slipped out the side door into the garage and pulled up the security camera app on my phone. I listened as they walked in. She goes to that pottery class on Tuesdays, Derek said. We have an hour. I want you to see the potential. The structure is good, but the decor is very Tanisha, beige and boring. We would have to rip these floors out, Sierra's voice chimed. Herringbone, lighter wood, more open concept. Whatever you want, babe, Derek said. Once we sell, we will have cash for the Tribeca place by next month. I watched them on screen as they moved through my kitchen, Sierra measuring the island she wanted to destroy. And the master bedroom? She asked. Can we see it? Upstairs, Derek said. But let us be quick. I do not want to run into her. At the top of the stairs he paused. The deed, he muttered. I think the hard copy is in the office. I should grab it to speed things up with the realtor. On the feed, I watched him pull down the blue binder, flip it open, and stop. His brow furrowed. What is it? Sierra asked. It says sole owner, Tanisha Dawson, he murmured. So, she said. You are married. Everyone knows it is 50-50. Yeah, he answered, but his voice lacked swagger. I thought we added me years ago. I distinctly remember. He did not remember because it never happened. Does it matter? Sierra pressed. No, he said, snapping the binder shut. The lawyer will handle it. Even if it is in her name, marital funds paid the mortgage. We might have to fight harder, but she will fold. She hates conflict. He was relying on the version of me he had built in his head. The doormat, the peacekeeper. He had no idea he was dealing with a woman who could buy his company twice and still sleep at night. When they left, complaining that the house smelled like old soap, I stepped into the kitchen, looked at the wall Sierra wanted to knock down, and whispered, You are not tearing down anything. Then I called a number I had not dialed in years. Candace, I said when my old college friend answered. Candace Miller was now one of the most ruthless divorce attorneys in New York. It has been a decade, she said. Is everything all right? No, I replied. But it is going to be. I want to hire you. I have a war chest that can pay your hourly rate for the next century, and I have evidence of embezzlement, fraud, and a separate property claim that is going to leave him with nothing. Candace was quiet for a moment, then said, I am listening. Over the next days, we built the case. I also reached out to someone else, Leonard Penheligon, the 80-year-old original investor who owned 30% of Dawson Electronics and legally chaired the board. Derek treated him like a senile figurehead. I knew better. I met Leonard in the private library of his Manhattan club, carrying a black briefcase filled with printouts. I am filing for divorce, I told him calmly. But this is about your money. I slid the forensic file across the table. Leonard read through the travel charges, the shell company payments to Sierra, the false consulting invoices. By the time he finished, his hands trembled with anger. He is stealing from us, Leonard said. He is embezzling, I corrected. He thinks you are too old to notice, and I am too stupid to understand. When the time is right, I need you to help remove him. I want him to lose everything at once, the house, the reputation, the job. Leonard studied me and finally nodded. You have my silence, he said. And when the time comes, you have my vote. Let us burn it down. While we prepared that fuse, I had to secure the front that mattered most, my children. Without them, any victory would be hollow. Derek understood that, which is why he flooded Maya with gifts and promises. My 17-year-old son, Jalen, was different, quiet, observant. He had seen too much to be dazzled. 3 days before the preliminary custody hearing, I was making lasagna in the kitchen when shouting erupted in the living room. You are a liar. Maya screamed. That is not true. Jalen shouted back. I rushed in to find Jalen holding his phone out, playing a voice note while Maya covered her ears, crying. Dad pocket dialed me an hour ago, Jalen said. He did not know the line was open. He was talking to Sierra. He hit play again. Derek's voice came through, smug and careless. I just need her to tell the judge she wants to live with us. Once I get full custody, I do not have to pay Tanisha a dime in child support. That is an extra $5,000 a month for our trip. The apartment is small, but I will ship her off to boarding school by next semester. She is a prop, babe. Just a prop. Maya's new phone slipped from her hand and hit the carpet. He said he wanted me, she whispered. He said I was his favorite. I did not gloat. I crossed the room and pulled her into my arms. This time she did not pull away. She collapsed, sobbing into my shoulder. Jalen wrapped his arms around both of us. I am sorry, Mom, he said, voice thick. I knew he was selfish. I did not know he was like this. We stood there in a knot while the lasagna burned. A part of me cracked open and re-hardened into something fierce. Derek had taken my money, my work, my youth. He would not take my children. The next morning, I gave the recording to Candace. She smiled like a predator. In New York, this may be tricky as evidence, she said, but to a custody evaluator, it is devastating. He just lost moral ground with his daughter. With that front protected, only one person remained to confront, my mother-in-law, Dolores. Dolores had been calling non-stop, leaving messages that swung between guilt and threats. When I ignored them, she arrived at my door in Chanel, shaking her umbrella onto my hardwood floor. We need to end this nonsense, she said, brushing past me. Derek is distraught. You are embarrassing the family name. She waved a settlement agreement in my face. I could keep the minivan, he would not seek alimony, and I would sign over the house and full custody of the kids. He is being generous, she sniffed. Sign it so we can put this behind us. I am not signing that, I said. Her expression hardened. Listen to me, you ungrateful nobody, she hissed. My son made you. Without him, you would still be a boring accountant in some cubicle. He has the money. He has the power. If you fight him, you will end up on the street. I let her finish, then went to the entry table and picked up a folder I had prepared. Let us talk about money, Dolores, I said. Last year, Borgata Casino in Atlantic City. $15,000 in gambling debt. Who do you think paid that? She faltered. Derek handled it. No, I said. He was overdrawn. I wired it from my inheritance trust to keep collectors away from you. Your hip surgery, your condo maintenance for 10 years. Those payments came from accounts I funded. Her mouth opened and closed soundlessly as I laid out the figures. You spent 20 years calling me a gold digger, I said quietly. You told everyone your son built my life. But I am the one who has been subsidizing yours. I am the bank. And the bank is closed. I took the settlement from her and tore it in half. Get out of my house, Dolores. Do not come back unless you are ready to apologize. Which you will not. Goodbye. She left in a fury, but beneath the anger I saw fear. For the first time she understood where her security had really come from. I felt lighter as the door shut. One more weight gone. The night before the first court hearing, a storm rolled over Westchester. Rain pelted the windows while I sat up in bed with my laptop, monitoring Dawson Electronics servers through the network tools I had quietly kept. Around 11:42 p.m., an alert popped up. Unauthorized access attempt. Admin user, D_Dawson. Action. Mass deletion on the Financial Archives drive. Derek was trying to wipe the ledgers for the years that mattered most. I watched him clumsily delete files and attempt to reformat the drive. I could have locked him out immediately, but I heard Napoleon in my head. Never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. Deleting the records would not erase them. It would prove consciousness of guilt. I called the external IT security firm I had hired on my own. Record everything happening on server 4, I said. Do not intervene. I want a full log and video of this user deleting financial records the night before a divorce hearing. They confirmed they already had secure cloud backups. The truth sat in a safety deposit box at a Chase Bank branch, mirrored weakly to an encrypted hard drive I had arranged years ago. At 1 a.m, I closed my laptop. Tomorrow would be an execution, not a plea. I laid out a white suit, sharp, clean, unmissable. The color of a blank page. For the first time in months, I slept deeply. The courtroom smelled of floor wax and stale coffee. Derek arrived late, of course, in the navy suit I once picked out for him, his expensive lawyer Harrison at his side. Sierra sat in the back row in oversized sunglasses, like she was hiding from paparazzi. I sat straight back beside Candace, facing forward. Harrison's opening statement painted Derek as a tireless provider shackled to an unambitious housewife. Derek took the stand and spoke about building Dawson Electronics from nothing, working 18-hour days, and sacrificing everything for his family. When asked about my contribution, he sighed and said I was a wonderful mother who never understood the business, that I was fragile, that he protected me from stress. Did she ever contribute financially? Harrison asked. Never, Derek said without blinking. Not a dime. She came from nothing. I wrote one word on my notepad, perjury. Then he claimed he paid for the house, that the deed was complicated, but it was his sweat that built it. When Harrison finished, Candace walked to the stand with a stack of documents. Mr. Dawson, she began pleasantly, you testified that you wrote the pitch deck that secured your first $5 million in funding. Correct? He nodded. Then perhaps you can explain the term EBIT margin compression based on third-quarter supply chain volatility, on page 14. Derek blinked. It is technical, he said. It means profit. No, Candace replied evenly. It refers to amortization and interest. Basic accounting. But do you know who does understand it? The person whose name is embedded in the file metadata. She held up Exhibit A, the digital footprint from the original document. Author, Tanisha Dawson. Creation time, 2:14 a.m. at our home IP address. She typed it for me, Derek protested. I dictated. So you dictated complex accounting formulas to a woman you claim cannot balance a checkbook? Candace asked. He stammered. The judge leaned forward. The foundation of his story cracked. Candace moved to the house. Exhibit B. A cashier's check for $42,000 from the Tanisha Dawson Trust to Dawson Electronics in 2003. Exhibit C. The deed to the Westchester property, listing me as sole owner with separate inheritance funds. You did not buy that house, Candace said. You have been living in your wife's house as a guest. Derek tried to call the check a loan, insisting he had meant to pay it back. Candace produced decades of ledgers showing no repayment. Then she played the pocket dial recording, Derek calling our daughter, a prop, and calculating her value in child support dollars. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Maya, sitting behind me, went still. Harrison objected, but the judge overruled, noting it went to credibility and parental fitness. Derek shouted that it was a joke, that he loved his daughter, but the damage was done. Candace then introduced the TVH Solutions file. The shell company, the consulting fees, the Florida trips, the luxury purchases. We are countersuing for dissipation of marital assets, she said. Mr. Dawson diverted over $240,000 of company funds to a shell company owned by his assistant and romantic partner, Ms. Sierra Hart. All eyes turned to the back row. Sierra shrank in her seat. Harrison tried a last move, demanding full disclosure of my trust. I stood. The trust in question is an irrevocable generational trust established before the marriage, I said. It is managed by an independent trustee. I am the beneficiary but do not control the principal. It is not marital property. Then I turned to Derek. You are worried about money, I said. You should be. While you were trying to raid my non-existent assets, I found where yours went. The trust currently holds over $14 million. You are not entitled to a cent of it. You left a $14 million safety net to chase a woman funded by stolen money. Derek's mouth fell open. He looked at Sierra, searching for reassurance. She was already pulling out her phone. A moment later, his phone buzzed on the defense table. He glanced down and his shoulders sagged. Later, I would hear what the message said. I cannot do jail. Do not call me. We are done. The judge's ruling was swift. Given the evidence of asset dissipation, the separate property status of the house, and the recording of Derek's own words, he granted me exclusive possession of the home, full temporary custody of Maya and Jalen, and referred the embezzlement evidence to the district attorney's office. He froze Derek's remaining assets pending investigation. In the hallway afterward, Derek staggered out pale. Before he could reach me, the elevator doors opened and Leonard stepped out with 2 board members and 2 uniformed officers. "Leonard," Derek gasped. "Thank God. You have to help me. She is making things up. I need the company lawyers." Leonard held out a single sheet of paper instead. "You are fired, Derek," he said clearly. "Effective immediately. For cause, embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, and gross misconduct. We also have the logs of you attempting to destroy evidence on the server last night. That is a felony." He nodded to the officers. "Derek Dawson," one officer said, "we have a warrant for your arrest regarding the misappropriation of funds from Dawson Electronics." They turned him around and cuffed his wrists. Cameras flashed from reporters loitering near the courtroom. The great genius of Westchester was led away in handcuffs. "Tanisha," he shouted as they pulled him toward the elevator. "I am sorry. I love you. Please fix this. You always fix everything." I looked at him, at the man who had once been the center of my world, and felt only a distant pity. "I fixed your taxes," I said quietly. "I fixed your business, your reputation, your family. I cannot fix your character." The doors closed, swallowing his voice. Leonard offered me a position as interim chief financial officer to help clean up the company. I declined. "I will help you find someone," I said. "But I am not coming back to fix his mess. I have my own life to build." He nodded, understanding. 1 year later, the house on Oak Lane looks different. The beige is gone, replaced with colors I love. I knocked down a wall in the kitchen, not for resale value, but so I can see the garden while I cook. The deed is still in my name. I never sold. It is my trophy now. Derek pled guilty to a lesser fraud charge to avoid a long sentence. He served 6 months in a minimum security facility and is now on probation, living on his mother's sofa in her condo, the same condo my dividends once quietly supported. I hear he is working as a sales associate at a car dealership in New Jersey. Without the chief executive officer title and corporate card, his charm does not go as far. Sierra disappeared to Florida, chasing another visionary. I launched the Invisible Foundation, a nonprofit that helps women in divorce proceedings access forensic accountants and legal support to uncover hidden assets. I fund it myself. We have already helped hundreds of women claim what they are owed. Maya is in therapy, painting again, relearning that her worth is not measured in how much she inspires a man. Jalen is applying to colleges. His admission essay is titled, "The Strongest Person I Know." It is about me. One afternoon, leaving a coffee shop in town, I saw a man walking toward me. His suit was off the rack, his shoulders smaller somehow. It was Derek. He stopped. His eyes flicked to my car, to my face, then back to the ground. "Tanisha," he said softly. "You look great." "Hello, Derek," I replied. He swallowed. "I miss you," he said. "I miss us." I was stupid. I did not know what I had. He waited, expecting the old version of me to appear, the one who would patch the holes and write the checks. I searched myself for anger, hatred, love. There was nothing, only a mild compassion you might feel for a stranger who tripped on the sidewalk. "You do not miss me," I said gently. "You miss the safety net. You miss the audience. But the show is over." I walked past him, got into my car, and drove away. I did not look in the rearview mirror. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.